Saturday mornings at Walmart were always chaotic, and this one was no different. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as I navigated my cart through the aisles, focused on crossing items off my list. My 10-year-old son, Ethan, trailed a few steps behind, his small sneakers squeaking faintly against the floor as he followed. The cereal aisle was bustling with other shoppers, carts clattering, conversations blending into the ambient noise of the store. I was engrossed in my shopping when the commotion started. A sharp voice, loud and cutting, broke through the hum of the crowd. I turned to see a woman glaring down at Ethan. Her face was twisted in anger, her highlighted blonde hair styled with precision, and her manicured nails gripping the handle of her cart tightly. She gestured dramatically toward a puddle of coffee on the floor, shouting as if Ethan had personally wronged her. The scene hit me like a shockwave. Ethan looked up at her, his face frozen in a mixture of fear and confusion. I knew my son. He had been walking quietly behind me, out of everyone's way. Yet here was this woman, projecting all her frustration onto him, as if he were some sort of delinquent. It didn't take long to recognize her. She was Karen, the same woman whose antics had become infamous in our small town. Whether it was berating waitstaff, cutting lines, or loudly complaining at PTA meetings, her reputation for causing a scene preceded her. This time, her target was my child. As she continued her tirade, I tried to shield Ethan from the brunt of her anger, but the damage was done. His shoulders hunched, and he clung close to me, clearly shaken. People in the aisle had stopped to watch, their gazes adding another layer of humiliation to the moment. Walking away felt impossible under her relentless accusations, yet confronting her outright seemed equally daunting. I could feel a protective instinct rising in me, one I hadn't known was so strong. This wasn't just about a spilled coffee or a misunderstood bump. This was about standing up for my son in the face of cruelty and entitlement. By the time we left the store, I felt raw. The fear in Ethan's eyes and the injustice of what had happened replayed over and over in my mind. That night, I resolved to do something about it. Karen's behavior had gone unchecked for too long, and I wasn't going to let her get away with it again. Not with my son, not with anyone. The days following the Walmart incident were consumed by my resolve to do something about Karen. Her behavior had become a recurring problem in our community, and this latest episode, targeting a child, was the final straw. I couldn't let her get away with bullying Ethan, and I certainly couldn't allow her to keep terrorizing others without consequence. I began to notice how often Karen crossed paths with me in our small town. Her presence wasn't hard to spot. Highlighted hair, sharp expressions, and the unmistakable air of entitlement she carried everywhere she went. It didn't take long to start documenting her behavior. The first opportunity came a few days later at the local coffee shop. I was grabbing a drink when I heard her voice rise above the quiet hum of conversation. She was berating a young barista for ruining her latte. The barista looked close to tears as Karen demanded to speak to a manager, gesturing wildly and making a scene in front of the entire line. I pulled out my phone and discreetly hit record, capturing every moment of her tirade. From there, it was like peeling back the layers of a rotten onion. The more I paid attention, the more incidents I saw. At the post office, Karen cut in line, barking at an elderly man who dared to speak up. At the library, she unleashed an explosive rant at a young mother who had politely asked her to lower her voice because her baby was sleeping. Everywhere she went, she left a wake of misery and discomfort. I followed at a safe distance, always careful to remain unnoticed, my phone ready to record whenever she began one of her infamous outbursts. The footage piled up, hours of Karen's entitlement on full display. Her aggressive gestures, her condescending remarks, her complete disregard for the feelings of others were all preserved in crisp, undeniable detail. The final straw came at the local park, where Karen confronted a group of teenagers playing music on a portable speaker. It wasn't loud enough to be disruptive, but Karen marched over and accused them of ruining the atmosphere with their noise pollution. When one of the teens politely offered to turn the volume down, Karen accused him of talking back and threatened to call the police. This was who she was, a bully who weaponized her entitlement to intimidate anyone who didn't conform to her standards. By the end of the week, I had more than enough evidence to expose her behavior. One late night, after Ethan had gone to bed, I sat at my desk and began editing the footage. I cut it down to a concise, damning 10-minute video. Each clip flowed into the next, showing Karen's repeated displays of entitlement and cruelty. From the coffee shop to the park, her actions painted a clear picture of a person who thrived on making others feel small. To protect myself, I took several precautions. I created a throwaway email account and used it to set up a new Reddit profile. Using a VPN to mask my location, I uploaded the video to a newly created YouTube channel, ensuring it couldn't be traced back to me. On the subreddit for our town, I made a post titled The Karen Chronicles, the local menace exposed, and included the video link. I briefly described the Walmart incident and encouraged others to share their own experiences with her. My heart raced as I hit post, the weight of what I was doing sinking in. The response was immediate. Within hours, the video had hundreds of upvotes and an avalanche of comments. People from all over town chimed in with their own Karen stories. Some shared tales of her berating employees, while others revealed the havoc she had caused at social events, schools, and local businesses. She got my daughter fired from her first job because she didn't honor an expired coupon, one user wrote. She tried to get my dog put down because it barked at her once, another said. The community's collective frustration spilled out in the comments. It became clear that Karen had been a source of misery for years, and my video had struck a nerve. People were relieved that someone had finally called her out. Over the next few days, the video went viral within the town. Local businesses began posting reminders about their right to refuse service to disruptive customers, and some explicitly banned Karen from their establishments. Her reputation, once shielded by a veneer of politeness in certain circles, was shattered. One morning, while scrolling through social media, I saw her real estate agency had released a statement distancing themselves from her actions. An internal investigation had been launched, and rumors swirled that she had been suspended. Though I hadn't identified myself in the post, I couldn't shake the mix of emotions I felt. There was satisfaction, yes. Karen's reign of terror was finally ending. But there was also unease. I had taken a drastic step, one that could never be undone. Had I gone too far? I tried to focus on the positive impact. Ethan seemed lighter in the days that followed, more confident now that he knew he hadn't done anything wrong. At school, classmates told him how brave he was for enduring Karen's abuse. My decision to stand up to her had clearly left an impression on him. But the consequences for Karen were far-reaching. She was now a pariah in our community, her actions laid bare for everyone to see. The fallout from the video swept through the community like a storm. Karen's once dominant presence all but vanished as businesses banned her, friends distanced themselves, and her real estate agency suspended her pending an investigation. Where she had previously been a figure of control and entitlement, she was now a subject of disdain and ridicule. I watched from a distance, keeping my anonymity intact. Each new consequence felt like another step toward justice. But even as her reputation crumbled, I couldn't shake the complicated feelings her downfall stirred in me. A week after the video went viral, I ran into Karen at a grocery store. I had been avoiding places where I thought she might be, but in a small town, it was impossible to avoid her forever. I turned a corner near the produce section, and there she was. She looked disheveled, a shadow of the imposing woman I had encountered at Walmart. Her hair, once meticulously styled, hung limply around her face, and her usual polished outfits had been replaced with a plain tracksuit. Her eyes, however, were just as sharp as ever. The moment she saw me, her expression hardened. Without hesitation, she stormed toward me, abandoning her shopping cart. Before I could react, she grabbed my arm, her grip tight and trembling. Her face was etched with anger, her voice low and filled with venom as she began to unleash her rage. Her words tumbled out, a mixture of blame and self-pity. She ranted about the consequences of the video, how she had lost her job, her friends, and her place in the community. Her anger was raw, but beneath it, I saw something else: desperation. Karen wasn't used to being held accountable, and the sudden collapse of her carefully curated world had left her floundering. Still, Her anguish did little to erase the harm she had caused. Her fury wasn't born of remorse for her actions. It was the bitterness of someone who believed herself untouchable and now faced the reality of consequences. I stood still, letting her words wash over me, my chest tight with conflicting emotions. Part of me wanted to confront her, to call out her behavior one last time, but another part of me saw no point. The damage had been done, to her, to those she had hurt, and, to a smaller extent, to me. Her tirade drew the attention of nearby shoppers, who paused to watch. She seemed to thrive momentarily under their gazes, like she always had, but I could tell the effect wasn't the same. The power she once wielded in public had vanished. I turned away, leaving her mid-rant. Walking out of the store, I felt the weight of the encounter pressing on my shoulders. The satisfaction I had once imagined from seeing her fall had been replaced by something quieter and more introspective. She had been exposed, yes, but at what cost? Over the next few weeks, Karen's presence in the community dwindled further. Rumors began to spread that she was planning to leave town, unable to endure the constant scrutiny and judgment. One afternoon, as Ethan and I played at the park, I saw the moving truck. Karen's car trailed behind it, packed with boxes and belongings. The sight was strangely anticlimactic. After weeks of upheaval, her departure felt like the inevitable conclusion to a story that had already reached its peak. Watching the truck disappear down the road, I thought about the journey that had brought us to this point. Karen had been held accountable for her actions, and the community was safer without her venom. But I also wondered if I had crossed a line. Publicly exposing her had been effective, but it had also been extreme. Ethan ran over to me, his face lit with the joy of a child at play. In that moment, I felt a strange sense of peace. The choices I had made were imperfect, but they had been rooted in a fierce desire to protect my son. Karen's downfall wasn't just about justice. It was about showing Ethan that bullies couldn't always win. Karen's departure marked the end of a chaotic chapter for our town, and for me. The weeks following her move were quieter, a noticeable absence of her usual chaos at local businesses and events. Life returned to a kind of normal, though the impact of what had happened lingered. At home, Ethan seemed more at ease. The incident at Walmart no longer haunted him, and he carried himself with a little more confidence. Watching him thrive reminded me of why I had taken the steps I did. The experience had shaken him, but it also taught him the importance of standing up to injustice, even when it feels overwhelming. Around town, people continued to share stories of Karen's past behavior. Some expressed relief at her absence, while others reflected on the broader message the incident had sent. Businesses began emphasizing the importance of respectful customer behavior, and more people seemed aware of how their actions affected others. Still, I couldn't completely shake the mixed emotions. While I believed in holding Karen accountable, I often questioned if my approach had been too harsh. I had exposed her for the person she was, but at the cost of public humiliation. Her life had been dismantled, and though she had brought it upon herself, there was no denying that I had played a significant role in that downfall. Over time, I chose to focus on the lessons the experience had taught me. I learned that fighting back against injustice takes courage, but it also requires careful consideration of the consequences. Ethan and I talked about the importance of empathy and forgiveness, even when others don't seem to deserve it. Karen's moving truck was the last tangible reminder of what had happened. As it disappeared around the corner that day, I felt a quiet resolution. The world isn't perfect, and there will always be challenges to face and difficult people to encounter. But in my small corner of it, there was peace. And for now, that was enough. If you've ever faced a bully or been caught in a difficult situation like this, remember, standing up for what's right matters. But so does kindness. Thanks for reading, and if you want to hear more stories like this, don't forget to subscribe.